Day 13, Patriarchs, Genesis 25 through 26, Job 15 through 16, Proverbs 2 verses 20 through 22. Let's begin. Genesis 25:26. In truth, Abraham took another wife, named Keturah. And she bore to him Zimran, and Jokshan, and Medan, and Midian, and Ishbak, and Shua. Likewise, Jokshan conceived Sheba and Dedan. The sons of Dedan were Ashurim, and Letushim, and Lemim. And truly, from Midian was born Ephah, and Aphor, and Hanok, and Abida, and Eldah. All these were the sons of Keturah. And Abraham gave everything that he possessed to Isaac. But to the sons of the concubines he gave generous gifts, and he separated them from his son Isaac, while he still lived, toward the eastern region. Now the days of Abraham's life were 175 years. And declining, he died in a good old age, and at an advanced stage of life, and full of days. And he was gathered to his people. And his sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the double cave, which was situated in the field of Ephron, of the son of Zohar the Hittite, across from the region of Mamre, which he had bought from the sons of Het. There he was buried, with his wife Sarah. And after his passing, God blessed his son Isaac, who lived near the well named of the one who lives and who sees. These are the generations of Ishmael, the son of Abraham, whom Hagar the Egyptian, Sarah's servant, bore to him. And these are the names of his sons according to their language and generations. The firstborn of Ishmael was Nebaioth, then Kedar, and Adbeel, and Mibsam. Likewise Mishma, and Dilma, and Massa. Hadad, and Tema, and Jetur, and Naphish, and Kedema. These are the sons of Ishmael. And these are their names throughout their fortresses and towns, the 12 princes of their tribes. And the years of the life of Ishmael that passed were 137. And declining, he died and was placed with his people. Now he had lived from Havilah as far as Shur, which overlooks Egypt as it approaches the Assyrians. He passed away in the sight of all his brothers. Likewise, these are the generations of Isaac, the son of Abraham. Abraham conceived Isaac, who, when he was 40 years old, took Rebekah, the sister of Laban, the daughter of Bethuel the Syrian from Mesopotamia, as a wife. And Isaac beseeched the Lord on behalf of his wife, because she was barren. And he heard him, and he gave conception to Rebekah. But the little one struggled in her womb. So she said, If it was to be so with me, what need was there to conceive? And she went to consult the Lord. And responding, he said, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples will be divided out of your womb, and 1 people will overcome the other people, and the elder will serve the younger. Now the time had arrived to give birth, and behold, twins were discovered in her womb. He who departed first was red, and entirely hairy like a pelt, and his name was called Esau. At once the other departed, and he held his brother's foot in his hand, and because of this he was called Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when the little ones were born to him. And as adults, Esau became a knowledgeable hunter and a man of agriculture, but Jacob, a simple man, dwelt in tents. Isaac was fond of Esau, because he was fed from his hunting, and Rebekah loved Jacob. Then Jacob boiled a small meal. Esau, when he had arrived weary from the field, said to him, Give me this red stew, for I am very tired. For this reason, his name was called Edom. Jacob said to him, Sell me your right of the firstborn. He answered, Lo, I am dying, what will the right of the firstborn provide for me? Jacob said, So then, swear to me. Esau swore to him, and he sold his right of the firstborn. And so, taking bread and the food of lentils, he ate, and he drank, and he went away, giving little weight to having sold the right of the firstborn. Then, when a famine arose over the land, after that barrenness which had happened in the days of Abraham, Isaac went to Abimelech, king of the Palestinians, in Gerar. And the Lord appeared to him, and he said, Do not descend into Egypt, but rest in the land that I will tell you. And sojourn in it, and I will be with you, and I will bless you. For to you and to your offspring I will give all these regions, completing the oath that I promised to Abraham your father. And I will multiply your offspring like the stars of heaven. And I will give to your posterity all these regions. And in your offspring all the nations of the earth will be blessed. Because Abraham obeyed my voice, and kept my precepts and commandments, and observed the ceremonies and the laws. And so Isaac remained in Gerar. And when he was questioned by the men of that place about his wife, he answered, She is my sister. For he was afraid to confess her to be his mate, thinking that perhaps they would put him to death because of her beauty. And when very many days had passed, and he had remained in the same place, Abimelech, king of the Palestinians, gazing through a window, saw him being playful with Rebekah, his wife. And summoning him, he said, It is clear that she is your wife. Why did you falsely claim her to be your sister? He answered, I was afraid, lest I might die because of her. And Abimelech said, Why have you burdened us? Someone from the people could have lain with your wife, and you would have brought a great sin upon us. And he instructed all the people, saying, Whoever will touch the wife of this man will die a death. Then Isaac sowed in that land, and he found, in that same year, 100-fold. And the Lord blessed him. And the man was enriched, and he continued prospering as well as increasing, until he became very great. Likewise he had possessions of sheep and of herds, and a very large family. Because of this, the Palestinians envied him. So, at that time, they obstructed all the wells that the servants of his father Abraham had dug, filling them with soil. It reached a point where Abimelech himself said to Isaac, Move away from us, for you have become very much more powerful than we. And departing, he then went toward the torrent of Gerar, and he dwelt there. Again, he dug up other wells, which the servants of his father Abraham had dug, and which, after his death, the Philistines had formerly obstructed. And he called them by the same names that his father had called them before. And they dug in the torrent, and they found living water. But in that place also the shepherds of Gerar argued against the shepherds of Isaac, by saying, It is our water. For this reason, he called the name of the well, because of what had happened, calumny. Then they dug up yet another one. And over that one also they fought, and he called it enmity. Advancing from there, he dug another well, over which they did not contend. And so he called its name, Latitude, saying, Now the Lord has expanded us and caused us to increase across the land. Then he ascended from that place into Beersheba, where the Lord appeared to him on the same night, saying, I am the God of Abraham your father. Do not be afraid, for I am with you. I will bless you, and I will multiply your offspring because of my servant Abraham. And so he built an altar there. And he invoked the name of the Lord, and he stretched out his tent. And he instructed his servants to dig a well. When Abimelech, and Ahuzzath, his friend, and Phicol, the leader of the military, had arrived from Gerar to that place, Isaac said to them, Why have you come to me, a man whom you hate, and whom you have expelled from among you? And they responded, We saw that the Lord is with you, and therefore we said, Let there be an oath between us, and let us initiate a pact, so that you may not do us any kind of harm, just as we have touched nothing of yours, and have not caused any injury to you, but with peace we released you, augmented by the blessing of the Lord. Therefore, he made them a feast, and after the food and drink, arising in the morning, they swore to one another. And Isaac sent them away peacefully to their own place. Then, behold, on the same day the servants of Isaac came, reporting to him about a well which they had dug, and saying, We have found water. Therefore he called it Abundance. And the name of this city was established as Beersheba, even to the present day. In truth, at 40 years of age, Esau took wives, Judith, the daughter of Beri, the Hittite, and Basemath, the daughter of Elon, of the same place. And they both offended the mind of Isaac and Rebekah. Job 15:16. But Eliphaz the Themanite, answering, said, Will a wise man answer as if he were speaking wind, and will he fill his stomach with fire? You rebuke with words he who is not equal to you, and you speak what is not expedient for you. To such an extent that, within yourself, you have expelled reverence, and have taken away prayers from the presence of God. For your iniquity has misled your mouth, and you imitate the tongue of blasphemers. Your own mouth will condemn you, not I, and your own lips will answer you. Are you the first man who was born, or were you formed before the hills? Have you heard the intentions of God, and will His wisdom be inferior to you? What do you know, about which we are ignorant? What do you understand that we do not know? There are with us both aged and ancient men, even more senior than your fathers. Is it so important that God should console you? But your own depraved words prevent this. Why does your heart exalt you, and why do you gaze with your eyes, as if thinking great things? Why does your spirit stir against God, so as to utter such speeches from your mouth? What is man that he should be immaculate, and that he should appear just, having been born of woman? Behold, among his holy ones not one is immutable, and even the heavens are not pure in his sight. How much more abominable and useless is the man who drinks as if from the water of iniquity. I will reveal to you, so listen to me, and I will explain to you what I have seen. The wise acknowledge, and they do not leave behind, their fathers, to whom alone the earth has been given, and no stranger passed among them. The impious is arrogant for all his days, and the number of the years of his tyranny is uncertain. The sound of terror is always in his ears, and when there is peace, he always suspects treason. He does not believe that it is possible for him to be turned from darkness into the light, for he sees around him the sword on every side. When he moves himself to seek bread, he knows that the day of darkness has been prepared for his hand. Tribulation will terrify him, and anguish will prevail over him, like a king who is being prepared to go to battle. For he has extended his hand against God, and he has strengthened himself against the Almighty. He has rushed against him with his throat exposed, and he has been armed with a fat neck. Thickness has covered his face, and lard hangs down from his sides. He has lived in desolate cities and deserted houses, which have been turned into tombs. He will not be enriched, nor will his basic necessities endure, nor will he establish his root in the earth. He will not withdraw from the darkness, the flame will burn up his branches, and he will be defeated by the breath of his own mouth. He will not believe, being vainly deceived by error, that he could be redeemed at any price. Before his time is completed, he will pass into ruin and his hands will wither away. He will be wounded like a grapevine, when its cluster is in first flower, and like an olive tree that casts off its flower. For the congregation of the hypocrites is fruitless, and fire will devour the tabernacles of those who love to accept money. He has conceived sorrow, and he has brought forth iniquity, and his womb prepares deceit. Then Job, answering, said, I have often heard such things, you are all aggravating comforters. Will there be no end to windy words? Or is it at all a burden to you, if you speak? I, too, can speak like you, and I also wish that your soul favored my soul. I would also comfort you with speeches and would wag my head over you. I would strengthen you with my mouth, and would move my lips, as if being lenient to you. But what can I do? When I am speaking, my grief will not be quiet, and if I am quiet, it will not withdraw from me. But now my grief has crushed me, and all my limbs have been reduced to nothing. My wrinkles bear witness against me, and a liar rises up against my face, contradicting me. He has gathered together his fury towards me, and threatening me, he has roared against me with his teeth. My enemy has beheld me with terrible eyes. They have opened their mouths against me, and reproaching me, they have struck me on the cheek. They are nourished by my sufferings. God has confined me with the immoral, and he has delivered me into the hands of the impious. I, who once was wealthy, am now crushed. He has grabbed me by my neck. He has broken me and has placed me before him as a sign. He has surrounded me with his lances. He has severely wounded my lower back. He has not been lenient, and he has poured out my organs upon the earth. He has cut me with wound after wound. He has rushed upon me like a giant. I have sewn sackcloth over my skin, and I have covered my body with ashes. My face is swollen from weeping, and my eyelids have dimmed my vision. These things I have endured without iniquity in my hand, while I held pure prayers before God. O earth, Do not conceal my blood, nor let my outcry find a hiding place in you. For behold, my witness is in heaven, and my confidant is on high. My friends are full of words, my eye rains tears upon God. And I wish that a man might be so judged before God, just as the Son of Man is judged with his assistant. For behold, a few years pass by, and I am walking a path by which I will not return. Proverbs 2 verses 20 through 22. So may you walk in the good way, and keep to the difficult paths of the just. For those who are upright shall live upon the earth, and the simple shall continue upon it. Yet truly, the impious shall perish from the earth, and those who act unjustly shall be taken away from it.